Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us. I'm going to try and start and build on some of the themes from this morning because it was really interesting looking at the ways that different projects are digitising. And I've been working alongside SPL Powerlines and Simon for the last 4 years, working on the Midland Main Line. And a lot of the themes from this morning, I think, really ring true with the kind of work that Evifile is here to do and the kind of initiatives that Simon's been trying to deliver on the Midland Mainline electrification project. And really what Evifile's focus has been is really on trying to, I suppose, fill out those gaps that were touched upon this morning, which is how do we actually digitize a project? How do we collect good quality data so that we can use that to power reporting, decisions, handback, entry into service, and all those things that good quality data will enable us to do. And that starts at the very beginning of a project and has to thread all the way through that project. So as an intro to what we've achieved on Midland Mainline, I'm going to let a video do the talking, and I'm just going to give you a 90-second overview really of what collectively we've delivered on Midland Mainline with SPL Powerlines.
Managing complex projects involves collaboration from numerous people in many different locations. Delivering on time and to budget requires that people have access to the right information at the right time. This ensures quality is maintained. The key to solving these issues are the efficient recording and transparent sharing of live data from site to boardroom. Having instant access to live data in one place, whether on site, in the office, or between the two, is key. SPL commissioned Evifile for their Midland Mainland project. Evifile provided live access to all the detailed information regarding the assets being installed to electrify the railway. Each structure overview gives you the complete golden thread of information for how, where and when the structure was constructed. Each asset has all digital information stored in Evifile, from design to end construction. This includes every drawing, engineered stimulus, quality check sheets and inspection test plans. All documentation and supporting evidence is digitised via any mobile device, creating a digital audit trail for every activity, completely eradicating paper and ensuring that every bit of data collected on site is securely encrypted and GPS stamped. All data reporting is in real time, through Evifile's Power BI reporting suite, showing planned progress versus actual, and delivering project-based business information reports in seconds, making Evifile a key part of any rail project's common data environment ecosystem.
Should have just recorded the whole thing, shouldn't we? But anyway, that's the 90 seconds of where we fit in as a tool. But it's not just about digitising overhead line or individual disciplines. Where we see a lot of the industry moving to across all these different clients that we work with now is we're collecting data, huge volumes of it, right, in different disciplines, in different applications, and there's a real desire to do everything more efficiently, drive down cost, make it easier to achieve an on-time delivery, a higher quality delivery, getting things right first time. And that, it maybe going back 2 or 3 years ago, was very much delivered by a discipline. So we started to work with SPL Powerlines on how do we digitise overhead line, and that's exactly what we're going to look at in depth today. But now we're working with organisations like Alstom, who've taken a really different approach, which is let's take 2 steps back and say, what does a signalling project look like digitally? So let's map out what our design data set formats are, what our activities are, what are the forms that we need to collect, and then let's roll that out across projects and make sure that we iterate and make that better so that all our data is digital, all our reports are digital, and we have a standardized way of working. So we're seeing a shift from digital being a patchwork solution for a discipline to being an overarching strategy that we deploy across projects to get better returns and to also make sure that we've mapped the process, can bring people in and out as we change across projects and get all the benefits of having that solution digitized.
Cheers, Luke. So digitalisation isn't for the select few. We've had a couple of slides this morning, a couple of really good presentations talking about what we do in the digital world, particularly in BIM integration. but it sort of sometimes sits a little bit in the white collar environment. Not really pounds in the ground, so I call it. Is it MVP? Questionable. Digitalisation should be for everybody, and the exam question we had on £300 million worth of electrification, sort of 200 SDK, 124 miles of electrification, is how do you actually get this to the people who do stuff, who've got to dig trial holes, who've got to erect foundations, who've got to put up SPS, put up wire, whatever it might be. It's not one of my work sites, but the principle is how do you get people to buy into digitalisation? How do you get people on site with laptops, with mobiles, doing stuff other than potentially filling bits of paper in that gets lost in the back of people's cars? We've got 100 laptops, iPads with SIM cards in that can the GPS stamp stuff when we do it. It's taken about 4 to 5 years to actually sort of deal with that sort of cultural behaviour within our business. It becomes norm now to go out and fill things in with an iPad, from construction managers through to supervisors through to engineers. It was quite difficult, it's quite challenging, but those behaviours are threaded through. So from my point of view, from the other white collar staff and working on middle and main line through to network rail staff, all the way through to the people on the ground, all understand the importance of holistic digitalisation. What if they don't do something on site? Then there's a gap. How do you fill that gap? How do I know when I'm entering 124 miles of electrification to service that the guy hasn't talked up a nut that he should have done? I don't. We need to understand what that looks like. We need to understand that metric. We need to understand that. And identifying that is really, really important, particularly at the granular level of site. So call this is a bottoms-up approach rather than a top-down approach. So we work on what the teams are needing to support the BIM and not the other way around. So quality assurance. So there's a lot of railway people here. Entry into service, absolutely a key metric to. It's not about counting widgets. It's about is the quality of the install good enough to enter it into service. Form E is like an MOT certificate for a car. You get conditions, you get requirements. So, you know, what does that what does that look like? For London to Corby, I had 413 Form E's, Form 5s that I had to that appended what I call an ECC, which is permission to energise. That's a lot of bits of paper as a principle. There's 413 bits of paper signed off by potentially 80 different competent CREs to support an energisation event. Each one of those Form E's had a number of different quality assurance checks within it, potentially hundreds of thousands of bits of data. So how do you map all that? It's quite difficult, it's quite challenging. I was at the top of the tree. How do I know that every single one of those Form E's is okay and is counted and is also signed, and the quality assurance beneath that is also okay? I don't know if, and I shouldn't need to know whether or not a nut bolt washer was torqued up, but the process enables you to give some confidence in that. So just from an OLE perspective, I'm an electrification engineer. We had 146 entry into service events, or 146 Form E's to support electrification. Within those Form E's, we had sub-disciplines. We had foundation steelwork, SPS, switching, wiring, final reg, and height and staggers. So each one of those sort of, items within the pyramid really had their own sort of set of requirements, and it was key that each one enabled the next. So you can't put steelwork up without the foundation. So how do you enable that? We didn't have one OLE, own overhead line CRE look after everything. We did that. We broke the poor guy, so we split the assurance up into sort of different subsections and made people accountable and responsible for each of the items on the pyramid. And that was key, A, for well-being, and also that we then pushed responsibilities down and accountability down to individuals. So an example, we have site checks, we have quality assurance checks, Form E's and an ECC. For L to C, London to Corby, we had 2,500 foundations. Each foundation roughly had about 40 checks per foundation. That's just about 100,000 checks just for foundations alone. It's a significant amount of effort in terms of geospatially locating the pile, the twist of the pile, the offset of the pile, the depth of the pile, whether or not the bolts were put in right, whether or not they're 315 studs or 350 studs. All of these checks were done prior to the commencement of site. So you'd go out on site and tick the boxes rather than going out on site and manually fill it in. All the evidence was supported within every file or the platform itself. So we could quite easily file print and append it to a Form 5, and we had 59 Form 5s, or again, 59 entry into service elements that supported just foundation only.
So underpinning that was the multidisciplinary teams that we all had to work with alongside the EVIFAL and the SPL teams to ensure that all the different stages of the project could be brought together in a way that would support the creation of those Form Es and the handback and the entry into service documentation. And rather than just being focusing on the site teams, which is a really important part because there's a change piece, again, which Simon's going to talk about, which is how do you get people to actually do things in a different way, collect the data differently, but also, like everybody in this room will have on all of their projects, there is a ton of data silos that sit in design, in this instance MicroStation or in the BIM model. We have the schedule in P6, and then we have a whole host of construction data that we need to capture, and then we have handback, right? Now, what we wanted to achieve with all of this and underpinning this is that if we have the information, we don't want to have to ask for it again. There's no point engineers on site filling out bills of quantities if we've got that in the design. So we worked alongside the design teams and the schedulers to make sure that we could flow the information directly from the design onto the tablets. So if you're installing an asset, you've got the information that you need from the design and you can check it off. The end goal here was one source of information, no matter which pillar it comes from, making it easier to get one source of the truth in the data. And then it's kind of the holy grail, as we call it, at the end. So in the construction phase, it's simple to capture the information on an app. And then when we get to handover, we have a record of the construction of each asset from cradle to grave, which can then be used to generate as much of the health and safety and handback file as we can at a single click. And it exists in the cloud. So it can be handed to the maintainer, it can be a complete record, and it could even have extra activities added into the workflow for maintenance activities beyond construction. So we're opening up a whole host of ways of bringing all of those different WhatsApp groups, Excel files, you know, and all the challenges that we face and trying to bring it into one cloud solution that enables all of that data to work in harmony together. And that was really what we were looking to achieve on Midland Main Line. So the data integration itself was, and we're going to take a good look at this, was really focused on ensuring that we could capture that information, but capturing the information is great because it's there to ensure that we're chopping out all the cost and effort. And I think everyone would agree there's so much cottage industry that goes on within projects to produce good quality insights. If you ask the question, where are we on our project? It's often quite hard to answer. And what we wanted to use the QCS route for was to clearly be able to measure, okay, how many of our assets have been installed to the right level of quality to be handed back, right? Can we understand that? And can we make it easy to report on that using the platform itself? And obviously the collection of that data then enables us to be able to produce really high quality outputs into things like Power BI and also into automation of handback files, which we'll take a look at how that works as we move forward as well.
Thanks, Luke. So the workflow within EVIFAL aligns pretty much to what we've always done anyway, which is go to site, we perform a role, we do some checks, we write it down, and it falls part of our entrance service or Form E or Form 5 or whatever you want to call it. We develop we develop the QCS, which is called under development, and then the key metric that most project managers, there's a couple in here today, I think Alison spoke earlier, love counting stuff complete, as in widgets erected, widgets installed on site. That's not the metric to count. Metric to count is whether or not it's been approved by a competent person, and the two are very, very different. As an industry, we've collectively counted widgets, particularly piles in the ground, structural steel. You can have 1,000 structures in the ground, but if they haven't been quality assured by a competent person, you're not going to enter it into service. It's really as simple as that. So the workflow enables the creation of a quality check sheet, the complete construction complete, which is a key metric, but it's not the most important metric. But the most important metric that gives confidence and health of any project is whether or not it's actually been approved by the competent person, which is the engineer. So the workflow within Everifile allows that process. The Power BI also link into this, so I can go into Power BI and have a look at the metrics, overall metrics, thousands and thousands of quality check sheets, and I can actually have a look at where the tension is. So if I've got 60% complete construction and only 10% have been signed off by a competent person, I know that the CRE could be under a little bit of pressure not to move things forward and actually say, I'm okay with what's been given to me. Right, so story metrics. Things like snagging, rework as a contractor, I'd call that, referrals, any additional rework. How do we centrally store our post-GRIP 6 or post-installation? How do we store anything and any data? The idea is to try and get away from this sort of hero culture of individuals holding special secret spreadsheets that they're only aware of. Spreadsheets that are on OneDrive on their desktop. If they leave, then the project goes down. Got to get away from and add resilience. And the collaborative environment that we've got means that digitalisation can be quite clunky, particularly on site. But if we have a snag, for example, we go out, we take a picture of it, it's tagged against an asset, and you start to see a sort of a digitalisation, holistic view of that structure, not only in design, construction, and starting that painful handback process where everything's aligned to an individual structure. Digitalisation removes that, it centralises it, which is key, and if people leave and you're starting to manage and chip away at this sort of hero culture that the industry has got, particularly in areas of entry into service and handback. So we've got responsibility also as an industry to look at ourselves, particularly white-collar staff. I've worked on some big projects. TRU is a lot bigger than anything I've worked on. Digitalisation is definitely part of that journey, but it's also, we shouldn't be, as part of my own personal experience, particularly in London to Corby, we were getting a design from Atkins, and I had a team of people manually inputting PDFs straight into Everifile. I think those costs were roughly about £1 million for people just sat around doing stuff, yeah? So how do we automate? How do we make things easier, quicker? You know, it moves away from pretty pictures, but it moves on how we use that metadata. How do we use that metadata in the design? How do we automate it into the Everifile so we don't have to manually intervene? How do we then get that data out and into Ellipse? And we're currently doing that as part of a workflow that we're currently working with Everifile on. Over to you, Luke.
Thanks, Simon. So we just wanted to, put a bit of context around what did the actual platform look like. So I'm just going to take a couple of minutes, to show you how we configured this, because we've talked about the disciplines and how we can digitize most processes in Everifile and collect that data. With SPL Powerlines and the Midland Main Line, we focused around building an asset-focused model. So here we can see each of the structures actually on the track pinned to Google Maps. We can see all the latest information and pictures that are captured. These are all geotagged and stamped, as Simon says, so that they can power the handback file and power the Power BI reporting underneath that. We have also imported design metrics straight from MicroStation. So if that information is available again, we can ensure that it's there for the engineers to see. They can take the pictures and access that information. And then we can start to get into the nitty-gritty of all of those bits of data we need to collect to prove that asset has been assured. And here we can see the 18 activities that we have to complete for each overhead line structure. And the example on screen now is showing us the stimulus the engineer needs to fill out this quality check sheet, all the checks that need to be done. So has it been allocated, completed, approved, who did it, when they did it, all the other data metrics. So everything is completed in a single app. Everything is then used from that one app data source to then power the instant real-time reporting and then the exports of the information that then goes back into ProjectWise or into the handback file or the health and safety file. As it's updated in real time, this is the project on a page. And this is one of the areas we find that a lot of projects struggle with is, where am I versus my target? How many structures have I completed versus how many should I have completed? And where are the problems? So this is where I would say it's taking all that low-level data we collect and actually turning it into insight, things that we can action, things that we can fix, things that we can control. And this is the bird's eye view. We can also drill right down into the low level so we can see by construction unit or by asset type or by contractor, how are they performing? And then this is taking us all the way back down into that very, very low-level data, which is collected on the forms in the field on the mobile devices. So you can work your way all the way up as a project director or all the way down as an on-site engineer. And I think that drill down and the granularity of the data, that only obviously works if you're collecting it and you've built in that discipline on the ground to say, this is what we need to collect, this is how we're going to collect it. And very much you need to think about what information is needed in that process to actually run your project as well as hand it over so that we're collecting the right data to show that where we are against our program, but also collecting all of the right data to ensure that we've got compliant data when we're handing it back to Network Rail. And that granularity of dashboards and functionality is, the main reason why I think Power BI is the best vehicle to be able to pull all that together and deliver that on your projects. So.
Cheers, Luke. I think you can read the conclusions for yourself. I think one thing for me and Femi brought up earlier from the RRR is the digital journey isn't just about departmentalising or about the GRIP stages, GRIP 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You need to start at the end and work backwards. So the requirements of the things that we check can help at every stage. So the requirements we put in our contractor requirements, technical work scope, CRTs, it's really key that we sort of mandate this workflow as part of the design. So I want the designer to provide the metadata to fill out the spreadsheet, and we also want the requirements in from the root, what do they want? And all this can be centrally stored, and the output could be a lot more efficient, a lot more effective if that holistic digitalisation is considered at the very beginning of a project. Big thing for me, I did one of these, which is you don't actually know it until you get it. So it's been really great for us. I've been on a personal journey on this, but for 4 years, we've behaviourally dealt with, I don't want to use a laptop because I've never done this before, and we never had to do this in 1986. We've got over that now, but it's taken time, but it's really, really effective, and yeah, I'll leave on that one.
Yeah, that's all good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed.